So Alam, কি অবস্থা?
লাইভ শুরু হয়ে গেছে স্যার।
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Refugee and Migratory Movements Research Unit, I invite you all to this third symposium under the title that RMMRU is organizing on COVID-19 and migration. The title is Build Back Better. And we are delighted that we have partnered it with Free Rohingya Coalition. And the name of today's e-Symposium is Hunger, Exploitation, Hate Crime, and Xenophobia, Rohingyas in Land and at Sea. We are all aware that COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on the lives and livelihood of people across the world. And it is a marginalized group of people who are worst affected. And included among them are refugees, migrants, displaced people. And obviously, Rohingya refugees in different parts of the world are also bearing the brunt disproportionately. We all know there are about 600,000 people, Rohingyas, left in Myanmar, and overwhelming bulk of them are in different parts of the world. What we see today is, and that there too, 140,000 live in internally displaced camps in atrocious conditions. We have seen, and many are being subjected to a range of, most are subjected to a range of violation of rights and indignity. What we also see is 1 million of Rohingyas are in Bangladesh today, about 300,000 in Saudi Arabia, 150,000 in Malaysia, and 30,000 in India, and tens of thousands more in different parts of the world. And obviously, they are already living in very poor conditions, and COVID-19 has put them in rather atrocious state. The lockdowns and overall economic showdown have robbed them of their livelihood opportunities, and pushed them into an abyss of malnutrition and hunger. So, and this has led to, to various forms of exploitation, reduced wages, degrading treatment. The condition of women and children, are particularly harsh. With men folk staying at home, it meant additional stresses and strains. It exposes them, makes women vulnerable to domestic violence. So these problems obviously are there and have been there, but has been exacerbated by COVID-19. And we have already seen boats have started moving. Trafficking and smuggling syndicates are pretty, they have bolstered their positions. Andaman Sea and South China Sea, boats are drifting, with people, Rohingyas suffering there, and no one is accepting them. On top of everything, what we see is they are being labeled as, either in land or at sea, they're being labeled as carriers of the virus. Already they had the tag, drug traffickers, agents of human trafficking, threats to national security. So, an umpteen number of cases of hate crimes have been reported. So stigmatization, hate crime, xenophobia are the realities of the Rohingyas today. So these are some of the issues that we are going to discuss today in today's symposium. I'm not going to make my introduction long. What I will say is just basic ground rule is that, we'll have, speakers will try to stick to their limit, the time that have been assigned to them. And then we will have open discussion. And we urge all of you to put in your questions, in the chat box. And also, if you could mention whom you want this question to be answered, and then I would request the panelists to keep track of that and respond to that if possible. And just to sort of minimize disturbance, we will put in auto mute, and obviously persons who wish to speak among the panelists, you are most welcome to sort of whenever we call upon you, certainly you'll be there to speak. And I'm not going to speak anything more, just welcome you. And as I said, it's a delight, that we are doing it with Free Rohingya Coalition. And we have a formidable, panel. And this is an all Rohingya panel. And this is one of the things I really am proud to present. This is an all Rohingya panel. They are going to be speaking about their community, what they are facing in this difficult time. With that, I now welcome Sharifa to speak a few words. And Sharifa, obviously you've got the bios, it has been widely circulated. She was born in Buthidaung Township in Arakan, and at the age of 6, she fled to Malaysia. And she's the founder director of Rohingya Women Development Network. And currently, as we speak, she's based in the US. Sharifa, it's your turn, please.
Please unmute.
Sharifa, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry. Hi, everyone, and Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me here. We all know that I'm sorry, I'm speaking on human trafficking and also on the boat people. Rohingya in Rakhine still are living like a bird in a cage. Outside world, they are not knowing what's happening to them. The outside world is still blind and deaf. In Bangladesh, they are living in fragile times. On human generation, there are no guarantee of future, of tomorrow. There's no guarantee of having a better livelihood, better life in Bangladesh. And of course, day by day, the situation is getting worse. Therefore, these people in search of freedom of life, they are willing to try to take any form of risks. And they ended up getting into the fake promises of traffickers to cross the borders to get better life, better opportunity, the freedom, the peace. While they are on the boat, hundreds of Rohingya women, men, children get onto the boats to cross the borders, like I say, for the safer life, for the better future. These people have been tortured, these people been exploited, these people been raped, these people been killed, these people been left in sea for months without food, water. And on top of that, many women that I have worked with been raped, and they have to stay in the boat for months. Recent boat stayed in a boat for 4 months, and they, in the past, there are people have to stay on the boat for 6 months, for 4 months, for 7 months, and many of them die in starvation. There are people like Mamtas that I work with. She was just 12 years old when she was trafficked from Sitwe IDP camp with her mother. She stayed on the boat for 6 months, and she was detained in Thailand camp in the jungle for a few other months as well. And after that, she was not able to pay. So when she was pursued by the trafficker, she was told that she don't have to pay any money. The trafficker just helping her and her family to have a better life, the promises of education in Malaysia. And she was raped by the traffickers while she was detained in the camp, and as well as when she was on boat. After a few months, she was sold to a man, and this man married her. At the age of 13, she got pregnant, and she have a child with her. I will say she's lucky among many Rohingya women, where she have better family, a husband who care for her, protect her, and she's happy with her marriage life. but many other Rohingya women who've been sold into marriages or just being sold one person to another because they're not able to pay the money to the trafficker. They have been facing a lot of problems like domestic violence, a lot of other physical, mental problem by the family. And there are also story of young men, like I know, his name is Foyas. He was 15 years old when he was trafficked from Butidong in 2016, last year, and he was taken by, he said he was helped by the Burmese military in Rakhine to cross the borders to Rangoon, and from Rangoon to Thailand. And from there, other traffickers help him enter Malaysia, so through land. While in the journey as well, it is like I say, because you risk your life in trafficker hands, they torture these people. And he seen many other men, young men was tortured and even been killed because these people are not able to pay the money. And we have seen nowadays that the boat is coming in to the neighbors countries. And this is the question that I have been asked: why Rohingya left their land? Why Rohingya are not living in Bangladesh camp? Like I mentioned earlier, very simple. These people have no future. They are living in a tents. There is no guarantee of anything, and they are depending on ration of humanitarian things. So, being a human, you are looking for better life, safer lives, and we don't have any options. We don't have any other options than putting our life in a risk, because we have nothing left. We have nothing left to lose. And even I was very young age, I have to cross the borders just in the search of better future. And there are many people like me, like other people, like Mamtas, like Foyas, has been giving their lives in the hand of traffickers, for the search of better life. Yet they are not getting any basic human rights in the country that they enter, like host countries. These countries had been saying that they don't recognize refugees. They are not signatory to refugee convention. In that excuse, they have been denying these people. Like, sir, you have mentioned that refugees are carrying COVID viruses to the country. They're making this issue as this pandemic as an excuse to let people die in the sea. And we have lost humanity, I see, in us. And this COVID-19 crisis pandemic have make us see how far we are going to, from our hands. And yeah, so I just want to say in a short that people are Rohingya community are risking their lives to cross the borders because, it's very simple. They are looking for the better life, and we are not carrying any viruses. Like in Malaysia, Rohingya been accused. The boat was pushed back, saying that Rohingya have been, carrying the viruses into the country. But when they are tested, they are none positive. And this is not, I think, an excuse to push people back. Yeah, so, I mean, I just want to end here. If there's any questions, I would love to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharifa, for for your statement. I think it's horrendous stories that you have heard. These are stories, these are facts. And the issue of torture, rape, early pregnancy, servitude, these are the realities of the Rohingyas. And the boats that are drifting for months, we can understand the plight of these people. Only a few weeks ago, I read a thesis in all the universities that have been submitted for PhD program, a PhD degree. The horrendous stories, you wouldn't believe the things that people are enduring, Rohingyas as well as Bengalis when they were moving some years ago. So this is the reality. Unfortunately, the world is not paying any heed to this reality. And that's the unfortunate situation that we are in. And we certainly hope these small efforts of ours will at least make some ripple effect to bring about some change in the policy sort of maker's mind. Now it's my pleasure to invite Hafsa Tamisuddin. Hafsa has been doing advocacy work for refugee rights, gender equality, and child marriage. And she also, left Burma for a long time ago, and currently she's based in New Zealand. Hafsa, if you could take over, please.
Thank you for having me here tonight. So I would just basically would like to touch upon only two things here tonight. The first one is the narrative of Rohingyas by the states, agencies, media. The narrative as the unwanted and as the burden, it has to change. And over time, we have constantly seen and heard on social media and other social media platforms about the response from the host community and countries towards Rohingyas are being ignorant about the root cause. And such the ignorance or the unwillingness of taking stronger action against the root cause indirectly support the injustice against Rohingyas. So no matter what is the reason that some states or some civil society are reluctant to use the right terminology or the right stance against the injustice for the Rohingyas, it is not the solution for us. So of course there are certain things that may not align with the best interests of the state or the agencies or the individuals, and they might be avoiding to use the right terminology or to use the right approach for this solution. And making us vulnerable in wherever country, it is not the solution for us. We here would like to call upon the international community, civil society, and agencies to stand in solidarity with us in this cause instead of making us feel inferior, dehumanized, or intimidated. Whether we Rohingyas are seen or accepted as a part of this larger society or not, for whatever reason it is, whether be it's for our ethnic group, whether be it is for our skin color, we are and we have been always a part of this society. The ignorance and the reluctance of not willing to take the right responsibility and approach against this cause will directly or indirectly have impact to the larger society. So if we don't want to see many Rohingyas, as the international communities or some host countries call the human flow, Rohingyas flooding to your countries or to your communities, please stand with us in solidarity for this cause in honor of the rights that we have as human beings, instead of creating xenophobia against us or hate or racism. Human right is not something we have to beg or plead to have for. It is what we are entitled to have. The other thing that I would like to touch upon is a policy around the services being provided to the Rohingyas in host countries, specifically in the refugee camps in other countries where civil societies or other agencies are providing services to Rohingyas. The evidence of the researches have been conducted in 2017 and 18 and 19 have shown and found that there is a gap between the service provider and the Rohingyas. There has been and there are still exploitation against Rohingyas in receiving services, yet there is no transparent platforms for the Rohingyas to be able to report against such acts. The humanitarian organization and agencies and civil society should not ignore such exploitation happening in the camp under their supervision or where they are right now. So last year in 2019, for the first Global Refugee Forum in Geneva, many states and many agencies, many advocates and many human rights defenders have constantly talked about the meaningful participation and inclusion of refugees in everything that we do about refugees. So here is my point. I think it is time for the civil society and the agencies and the organization to seriously take into consideration of having Rohingyas in implementing projects and in coming up with the ideas of providing services and delivering those services, monitoring in every step. You need to help us if you really want to deliver such kind of services in honor and with dignity. And there is one thing that I always bear in mind whenever I do such kind of service delivery to my community or to others, is that as a human being, when we can give something to other people, we have such happiness and a little bit of pride as the giver. But there is something that we have to remember. We have everything in the past. We are not the beggars. And there is something that we have to internalize in receiving. It is intimidating. It is really humiliating. Always, every single day, the people lining up in refugee camp to receive a little bit of support from the agencies, from the organization for their survival. So we just have to bear this thing in mind. And I hope the international organization and civil society and individual will seriously take consideration of taking the meaningful participation and inclusion of Rohingya refugees in everything that they do, in everything, and coming up with the policy, delivering and monitoring. So when this kind of human rights crisis happen, when the time passed by 7 years, 5 years, 6 years, people tend to make it normalize. And the seriousness, the people, the curiosity, the response to this crisis back then in 2012, and looking at today, we can see that face going down. It is not as serious as it was. So does that mean that the crisis have already been resolved? No. We keep seeing every day a lot of horrible things happening in different countries and many bad things happening to Rohingyas. So I just would like to remind myself and other international communities and agencies and civil society, the hunger, the exploitation, the hate, the humanization, and the xenophobia that the Rohingya has been taking, have been forced to take in, has been already more than any other human race on this earth can take. And I just would like to repeat again, making things harder in host countries or closing the border is not the solution for our crisis. Racism is not the solution. And I just hope people can be really mindful before they get into those xenophobia and racism, and they really well study, because xenophobia and racism is a disease. It's a mental disease come from our insecurity and fear. It is not only gonna affect the people who are being hated and being affected by xenophobia, it will also affect the people who are in that. So the real solution for us is standing in solidarity with us in fighting against the root cause for our humanitarian, for our Rohingya crisis. And with that, we call upon international communities, civil societies, individuals, and the state to take the right stand against injustice against us, to share the responsibility among every state and individuals and organizations instead of victim blaming. Thank you.
Thanks, Hafsar, for this very, very important sort of intervention. And you rightly highlighted the limitation of the current approaches in so-called refugee sort of management, and we very much acknowledge, and we absolutely, we are in sync with you when you say that we are people, we have respect, we have dignity. We should not be treated as inert objects to be recipients of charity. Certainly those are some of the issues that need to be taken on board by the policymakers, and when drafting any legislation or any policy pertaining to the refugees, be they in the camps or be they outside the camps, whether the country have signed the Refugee Convention or not, it is incumbent on every government to treat people with dignity. And that is something we are going to reiterate in this discussion today. It's now my pleasure to invite Ali Johar, who's based in India. At the age of 10, he had to flee Arakan. And it is interesting, when I was looking at his bio, among other things, he has worked in a Bollywood movie as an assistant director and dialogue writer on Rohingya. It's gratifying to know that Bollywood is also taking up this issue. So Ali Johar, I don't want to sort of trivialize the importance of the point that you will make, but it is also important that how we have to really make our presence, the community's presence felt in different arena, in arts, culture, and everything. That's the reason why I mentioned this. Ali Johar, please.
Thank you so much for having me here. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes.
So, as I'm introduced, I'm based in India, and I work as an education coordinator to the Rohingya Human Rights Initiative. And I'm here in India since 2012 after leaving from Bangladesh. So, before going to the main point that I will be looking into deportation, detention, and human trafficking across this region throughout Myanmar, Bangladesh, and India, I'd like to a little bit highlight the situation in India throughout the history, why Rohingyas have chosen India for the first, as an asylum country. So after the riots took place in Arakan in 2012, Bangladesh has stopped, closed the border as it was done earlier in the year of 2016 and 17. But thanks to the Bangladeshi government and people that they have shown their humanity to receive a massive people who are fleeing a genocide. So when Bangladesh has stopped the border, and there was a hostile situation in the region of Cox's Bazar, who are staying out of the camp, people were arrested who are not having documents. So many people who were there in the camp or out of the camp, or who just came to Bangladesh, have thought of another country that can possibly be just India, who did not took a massive risk of taking their life on a boat to reach Thailand, Malaysia, or Indonesia. So there are people who have reached to other countries like Europe and Western countries who were able to manage, but for the ones who are not having enough connections, materials, or monetary support from their background, or maybe they, if they belong to such a background, they have chosen, all these people have chosen India as a first country, second country as an asylum. So in India, basically there are 18,000 Rohingya refugees. There are different figures on the internet, like it shows 40,000, 30,000, but the exact number is 18,000 plus, like 2 to 300, 18,300 around, according to UNHCR, according to our data as well. So our people have found refuge in Hyderabad, Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi, Haryana. Basically, these are the states where our people took refuge in India. There are also some other parts like West Bengal, but in this area, like border area, most of our people are in detention. According to our estimate, there are more than 200 people in the border area who are in detentions since very long, like since 2010, 2012. There are girls, children. Children are being separated from their families, and they have even forgot Rohingya language. They don't know their, if they see their parents after 8 years, they don't even recognize their parents. They have forgot where they belong, and they have accepted that detention centers are their life, their everything. So we get calls from women from detentions mentioning like they are mentally disordered. They use abusive languages for human rights activists, Rohingya leaders, or anyone. Anyone comes in their mind. They say you are, freely sleeping with your wife, but we also deserve a life. They, they say they have nothing to offer, but they need help to escape from this detention, jail, and correctional homes they were being put into since 2010. They say, I have nothing to, if I quote a woman, she called me and said, I have nothing to offer you. If you release me, I am ready to give you whatever you want. It can be my body as well. So this is how I can describe the situation in the detentions. So if I may highlight on the documentation in India, UNHCR, as it is true that UNHCR is not doing enough or hasn't been done enough, but it is the only organization that is working for the Rohingya refugees in terms of providing documentation as a refugee card. So during the year 2014, 15, 17, and 18, Indian government has provided a long-term visa to Rohingya refugees. Almost 300 families got long-term visas from the government of India, but in the middle of 2017, Indian government has announced they are listing Rohingya refugees to deport back to Myanmar. So when it was announced in the parliament, there has been petitions on the Supreme Court of India asking to adhere by the international law by not deporting Rohingyas back to in a hostile situation right now. So after these petitions took place, the Home Ministry has stopped providing long-term visa, and people whom they provided, they have rejected their applications when they have applied for renewal. So this announcement at the Parliament of India did not brought a good news for Rohingyas in India as well. People before 2017 in India, there was not much awareness about the Rohingya crisis as well as Rohingya people taking refuge in India. But after it was announced in Parliament that they are going to deport us, a lot of media outlet have carried out massive hatred against Rohingyas, saying these people are national security threat to India, even though there is no any evidence has been produced on the Supreme Court when we have brought this petition. So until now, there is no any evidence that any Rohingyas have carried out any incident that goes against the norms of national security of India, which may threat to national security of India. But unfortunately, media's have carried out a very massive hatred, which has created chaos in among the local communities. Currently, landlords are refusing to provide a rental apartment to Rohingyas. There has been attacks on the Rohingya families in Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana, Delhi. There were incidents of fire took place like in Delhi in 2018, April 15 and 14 midnight. The oldest refugee settlement of Rohingya was set on fire. 55 families lost their everything they had. After that month, in May, another camp was burned down in Haryana of 50 families. After that, this continued. In Jammu and Kashmir, there were 4 incidents of massive fire that took place. Even there were incident of death due to these fire incidents in Jammu and Kashmir. In Hyderabad also, such cases, the hatred started among the local communities. Whenever like our people face any kind of discrimination from anyone, if they go to police station or anyone for justice or to describe their condition, they just say you are being asked to leave this country, why you are here. Even healthcare facilitator, health workers are using such discriminatory words against our women when they go for health services to the public health services. So if I may touch to human trafficking, this is a very massive crisis our people are facing in this region. Burma, Bangladesh, and India, Thailand, Malaysia, all these countries are interlinked with this human trafficking crisis, where women are being smuggled, to send to Malaysia. There have been incidents of illegal document making from Bangladesh, which I think a lot of people are aware, as there is no any other means after Bangladesh has stopped providing exit permit to the Rohingyas. When the documentation, illegal documentation came into highlight, Rohingya women and Rohingya men, Rohingya families has choose illegal border crossing through all these countries to reach Malaysia, Thailand, India, but most of them have ended up in detention, jail, women into prostitution, families into bonded laborers, where even where I'm sitting in New Delhi, after 70 kilometers, there are families who are being kept as bonded laborers under the nose of UNHCR, which is well aware about all these cases. So, but in this human trafficking rackets and crisis, always Rohingyas are being victim blamed. If I may ask a question to the audience who are listening, if you have no documents provided from your own country to choose a travel, after you choose a country for asylum where you face discriminations, you don't have basic human rights, you don't get exit permit, you don't have travel documents, what would you choose? You will try to find out alternate solution. So that is why our people are choosing to make illegal documents from Bangladesh or elsewhere. There is no other intention for this. So that is why our people are choosing all this risky boat journey. That is why our people are choosing all this risky journey throughout so many countries. Even though there is threat of rape, sexual harassment, every threat to all the inhumane, every threat to all the a person that may amount to life risk. So this victim blame has to be stopped, and there should be alternate solution, like Bangladesh can create a conducive condition, like if I may suggest for the Bangladeshi people, as they were earlier so empathetic towards the refugee crisis, they may show a little bit more humanity for these people by showing empathy for the women, for the children, by providing a little bit of educational opportunities so that they can choose for their life. Otherwise, we are losing an entire generation. It is true that our solution lies in the Myanmar because we belong to Myanmar and our solution belongs to Myanmar. But during our stay as a refugee, as an asylum, there should be a short-term solution as well. Our children are there since 2016 who have joined, this new exodus. Since 2016, now it is 4 years. They have lost their academic years. There is no educational opportunities. There has been attacks on our students who are in the institutions. So there should be a way why, there is a question why our youths are choosing illegal ways to enter into universities, because they have no other ways. I think Bangladesh can choose a better ways by providing some scholarship. There are massive good people in Bangladesh who have chosen their food to share with our people. I believe they will be happy to share their universities with 5 scholarship to 5 students, 10 scholarship to 10 Rohingya students every year. So if they, Bangladesh, choose to bring up a solution, there will not be all these illegal documentation that are going against the rule of law in the host country. So in my journey as a refugee in Bangladesh, in India, I have met a lot of good people. That is why I have been able to complete my matriculation in Bangladesh. After that, my graduation in India from University of Delhi with the support of UNHCR, humanitarian organization, local people. But being a refugee, once you become a refugee, you become a refugee. Unfortunately, after becoming a refugee, most people don't see us as human. We are almost more or less treated as an object, but we are not truly an object. We are human beings and we deserve a humane life. Thank you, everyone. If there is anyone with any questions, I will be very much happy to answer.
No, thank you. Thank you, Johar. I think you made a very, very compelling case about why Rohingyas move through irregular routes. And you have rightly identified the lack of documentation, is one of the main reasons why they do it. And you have also sort of highlighted, the last point that you made, that don't treat us as objects. We are human beings and we have the aspirations. And as in some other discussion, one of your Rohingya youth said, world must understand that they should not only care that we survive, they should acknowledge that we would like to thrive. I think that's a very, very pointed statement. And this is something we should bear in mind when we develop our Rohingya strategy, be it as policymakers, be it as civil society activists, be it as NGOs delivering services to the Rohingyas, or be as human rights activists. Now it's my pleasure to call Mr. Shujauddin Karimuddin. He's a Rohingya activist and a community support worker based in Australia. Mr. Shujauddin Karimuddin.
Assalamu alaikum, Professor. How are you? And I'm assume is my phone, my microphone on?
We can hear you. We can hear you. You're absolutely
okay. Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak here to share some of the experience we have. And I just wanted to make it clear before I speak, I'm not representing any group of people or any organization from any country, from anywhere. It's me alone, and everything I'm saying here today is based on what I have personally experienced or observed during my interaction with refugees throughout the region and Rohingyas themselves. So please, it is my statement. It is me who I'm speaking. All right. So please do not punish the whole population for this. Being a refugee is not. It's not a choice. It's not a choice that we made. It's a circumstance that's compelled us to come and seek refuge in your countries. And I'm going to be very blunt. I'm sorry to be direct with people. I have to say that, let me give you a few examples, right? First of all, just 2 days ago, a woman from my village called me, a mother of 2 kids, and whose kid was suffering from tuberculosis. And in the village, she doesn't have access to medical services. Now, for her to go to the town about 90 kilometers away from her place to the hospital where the city is, in Sittwe city basically, she needed to make a travel document, which gonna cost her around $75 US dollars. I'm talking in US dollar terms so that people can have an idea. And her family income a month is around $30 to $35 a month. For her to travel with her kids, well, at least one child, to go to this hospital, is going to cost her $150 because $75 for each person to obtain this travel document. And for her, transport is cost double the price of any other local person will travel, or triple in some cases, because she's a Rohingya, and the transport company would not take her, or it will be a risk for the company to take her on the transport vehicle, on the bus, for that matter, or the car, because the local Buddhists could attack the car because that car is carrying a Rohingya person. Therefore, they usually charge double or triple. Now, this person do not have any choice. She called me and she conversed with me, like, how are you doing, and all that. She couldn't say, I need help. She couldn't say, right? However, later on, she said, I need this help, and I supported her. And then she went to IKEA. The moment she arrived in the hospital, and she told the doctor that, the administrative officer, or at the reception, said, can I please be seen in a few days, because I only have 7 days limit of my travel permission to come to this city from the town I'm from, and I will have to leave before that day, otherwise I could be imprisoned. And the response from the receptionist was that, you class, are such, always come with the demands. Now, here you have to understand, please imagine this. We take granted these things in the West, in many countries. Travel, we just pick up our bags and go, right? Especially in the Western countries, we just take our passport, we go anywhere, any part of the world, any corner of the world. Imagine what has gone through for this person from the beginning. She is a proud mother, it's a proud human being. She had to ask someone to pay for her expenses to treat her child. And yet she goes to this place and she's humiliated when they call you a Kala. Is believe me, I will rather would have a stabbing in my stomach than being called as a Kala. And then this person, get the treatment, and when she was going back, well, she's still in institute right now, but she was going back. There was no car wanted to take her because she cannot afford the demand that they are making, about an unreasonable amount, which is about $100 or something, for her to go back to that 90 kilometers a distance, to Rohingya. Now, these are the people, folks, are taking whatever means they can to escape the horrible situation they are in. But mind you, this is so-called peace time in Arakan at the moment. And they come to the region, and in the region, their situation is not much better. Why do they leave? They leave because they don't have citizenship. Their citizenship is stripped, taken away. The land is confiscated. The land was invaded by the Burmese, and they are accused of being illegally settling in their own ancestral land in which is Arakan, occupied territory of modern Myanmar. And when their citizenship is stripped, you can imagine everything is taken away from them, and yet they come to this. They come to to escape this and to save life, to come to the region, the Bangladesh and other regional countries. And I'm very careful to not want to mention the name of the countries, because some people are so patriotic they even forget to be human being, unfortunately. So their situation does not change. Some cases they get worse, the situation get worse, and other cases a little bit better. I mean, they can breathe, they are still living. There's no immediate threat of life, yet they have other threats and which cost their life. I myself was sold into slavery by the immigration of a country where I was seeking refuge. And I'm not exaggerating. If someone is interested later on, I'm happy to discuss this. Sold to slavery, to human traffickers, right? So there was an Indian poet, Majid Deobandi, says, when he was being killed, I was silent. Today is my turn. And when I'm being killed, you are silent. Tomorrow will be your turn. Now, I don't wish that anything, whatever we are facing right now as a community, the Rohingya people, I do not wish anyone else go through this experience. Believe me in this. And it's horrible enough to witness or experience, and I do not wish you or anyone else in the region and throughout the world to go through this experience. God forbid. But what is the solution? I believe the best solution for Rohingyas is to go back to their ancestral land. And everybody understand that throughout my interaction with the Rohingya people. They all understand that the only place where they can live peacefully is the Rohang Arakan, which is now renamed as Rakhine in 1965 to just indicate the one group of people. While what are we really asking is, while we are in the period that we are waiting to go back to our country with rights and dignity, we need food, we need shelter, we need housing, we need education, and allow us to be part of the society, your society, and allow us to contribute to your society and be the productive member of the society by granting some most fundamental human basic rights of work, livelihood, right? Education for the children, so that they learn and they can, with their skills and learn, and they contribute back to, be able to contribute back to your society. And perhaps talking about the governments, particularly if you, I don't know, any government representatives are listening here, if you gave us a bit of opportunity until we can go back, we would thrive, we will flourish, we will give back to you, we will be appreciative, we will be grateful. And there are examples in anywhere else where the refugees in general, but in the case of Rohingya as well, they have thrived. You know, in Australia in 2010, 9 and 10, about 25 families, actually, about 100 something, 190 something individuals were resettled for Bangladesh. Today, I can tell you a lot of them, when I say a lot of them, more than a few dozens of them are paying at least $20,000 to $35,000 in taxes, just in taxes, right? And you know, we can go on, and I can go on and talking about the achievement they have for hours. I mean, the contribution they are making to the society, and through the education, through the sports, and through other means, the services. So it is important for the host countries to allow them to live until they can go back to their country with dignity and respect their rights, and give them some, allow them to contribute to your society, to make their life better, and also make the environment they're in it's better. I hope I get to explain what my concerns are. And again, before I finish, I must say that everything I've said is my own words, and it's not really representing any group of people, or an organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sajauddin. You know, it's a very poignant narrative that you have mentioned in the course of your discussion, and it reflected the discrimination and humiliation that an average Rohingya faces in their own country. And it also sort of makes a very strong case for people to understand, you know, why people move, why they're leaving that land. You know, I think that those are very important points that you made. And also your final point, and you made a very persuasive case why education and other opportunities should be created, which is a win-win for everyone. And particularly at a time when we talk about SDGs, leaving no one behind, certainly there is a strong case then for everyone to access education, healthcare, decent housing. Otherwise the humanity falls behind. And that is exactly the spirit of the SDGs. And I guess this is something we need to push in every forum. And thanks for being the champion of that cause. Now I request our comrade and dear friend, long-term partner in the struggle for establishing rights of Rohingyas, Nason Dwing, is the coordinator of Free Rohingya Coalition. Nason.
Thank you so much, Professor Abra, ladies and gentlemen, brother and sister, fellow activists and comrades who are listening to this event. Good afternoon. I will detail about my fellow Rohingya in Myanmar, and my colleague Razia is not here, so I will add some about the situation in Bangladesh, and of course, failing by the international community on our issue. So allow me to start by describing how Myanmar has behaved during this pandemic. First, there is the continuation of armed conflict in Rakhine State. Rakhine and Rohingya villagers have been badly impacted. Thousands of Rakhine have been displaced. In fact, less than 10 days ago, the Burmese authority were talking about clearance operation before they realized that it would be a PR mistake and revoke it. 3 years ago, Rohingya were at receiving end of this genocidal clearance operation. At the same time as all this, Myanmar has been illegally taking back Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh. Given the tight security, you need to ask how and what is going on. Bangladesh never acknowledged that some 600 Rohingya have returned to Myanmar. No, that is seemed to fit the agreement that was signed by Myanmar with UN agency and Bangladesh. This strange repatriation of selected Rohingya is to seduce public opinion. This strange Myanmar want to suggest that the Rohingya are willing to return, but Bangladesh is blocking repatriation. The truth is that Myanmar has not created any condition that meet our demand. What they are doing is not safe, dignified, or sustainable repatriation. This is another act of manipulation. At the end of May, a few dozen Rohingya and a Hindu returned to Myanmar from Bangladesh. Among them, 9 tested apparently positive for coronavirus. As all patients remains without symptoms, we doubt whether they really were infected. Among the returnee, at least 28 have been sentenced for 6 months jail with hard labor under Immigration Act for illegally entering Myanmar. My sources in Maungdaw and Budidong have said the people who have them will also face action. I think at least 150 will be jailed in the coming days. Those who return to Myanmar were convinced by local authority to do so. No one can return there if the authority do not permit them. The election will be held in November, and it is clear the ruling party want to show the public that they are completely against bringing back Rohingya. There can be no other reason why they are now jailing the very people they entice back. The first Rohingya COVID-19 case was observed in Maungdaw, but that was not the first case in Rakhine State. Two Rakhine Buddhists tested positive for coronavirus and in Tandwe and Tongol Township. Yet the local authority, local media, including foreign service media, have been trying to spread specific hate threat against Rohingya. The propaganda is very predictable. Bengalis, that is racial, that is their slew word for Rohingya, have entered Myanmar illegally and have brought coronavirus with them. Consequently, hate speech against Rohingya over social media is steadily increasing. So let me turn to the situation in Bangladesh. We Rohingya are refugees in Bangladesh, but we are not recognized as such. We lack right, all sort of right. The UN agency have failed to secure those rights for us. What they have managed to do is just look after our survival. And even in that task, they are failing us now in this lockdown with the complete destruction of their services. They need to argue better. They need to get into the camp now and address many problems that 105 days worth of lockdown had inflicted on the Rohingya living there. The situation is urgent. The camp were never well resourced. In this lockdown, people are suffering because of problem with water, house repair, ration, food security, and healthcare services. First chance is there of that. This huge organization don't consult us. They sign secret document without our knowledge, and they make secret plan about us with the country that committed genocide against us. My fellow Rohingya in Bangladesh camp have huge expectation from powerful country of the world. They have been encouraged by the various international justice mechanisms which are underway, but they are still wondering about the great democracy of this planet which champion freedom around the globe. Where are they? What are they doing? They are completely puzzled when they see that the only action taken against a regime which has committed the gravest crime is to ban one or two of its members from vacationing there in their country. This is a travesty of justice. It is an indictment of the bastard economy and political interests of this country. They are permitting genocide under their watch. Bangladesh is not a powerful country. It is a small economy, and yet even so, its humanity and solidarity has saved hundreds of thousands of our lives. Deep in its psyche, Bangladesh understands what it meant to have to flee to a neighboring country from a murderous army. Thankfully for its citizens, it was just for a short time. But for others like us, it seemed like forever, and that is the cruelest experience. Ladies and gentlemen, we can count 4 decades of going backward and forward without any sustainable solution. We want this to end. By providing us a safe refuge, Bangladesh is providing some of us a chance to rebuild our life back in Myanmar someday soon. Yes, that means to go back and build back better. We are inspired by the experience of Bangladesh history, and we are inspired by the value it holds. These are values which powerful countries are forgetting when it comes to protecting people who have suffered oppression and repeated massacres. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nesan. Our other speaker, Razia Sultana, we have just heard that she had endured a family tragedy. That's why she cannot join us today, and hopefully we'll have opportunities in future to hear her. We have, there are quite a few questions came for the members of the panel. I thank everyone, including Nesan, for coming up with a very perceptive sort of statement, providing us the reality that it exists for Rohingya in this difficult sort of time. I think panelists might have gone through the chat box, might have seen. For Sharifa, there is a question about when you said about people taking the boat, by boat. Our refugees are aware of the likely predicament in the boat, and obviously in all likelihood this would cost a fortune. how do they raise such money? And Mr. Ziauddin asked this question to Hafsar. Hafsar referred to some terminology that people refer to Rohingyas, and if that could be elaborated. So these are the 2 points, if you could come in. First, Sharifa, and then Hafsar. And then I'll come back to Ali Johar with his questions. Sharifa, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Sure. I think from what how these people get money is they sell their land, their houses, their goods, their whatever saving they have, they use it up, and they also get help from people, their neighbor, their family members from outside of Malaysia. Example, if people are in Malaysia and they have relative over there, so they get help from people. So basically the money they raise is within their family circle, and they sell whatever they have, and they use whatever saving they have.
Right. And how about are they aware of the risks involved, the difficult time that may be there, the rape and all that, or is it something that information do not go back to them, that these could be likely scenarios? That they are even prepared to take that risk. Yeah.
So yes, they aware, I think, like I say, I think they aware of the risk, but they are not aware of the abuses that they get from the traffickers. They aware that they are going to a sea, it's dangerous, it's not safe, but they are not aware of 100% of the abuses, the torture that the traffickers, do to them. They trust the traffickers. That's the reason they, put their life in danger, and thinking that they're going to protect them, they're going to, fulfill the dream of life that trafficker promise. So yes, they are aware of the risks in the sea, in the land, in the land of the journey, but they're not aware of the abuses that the trafficker, do to them.
Okay, thank you. And Hafsa, if you could come in on that question about terminology. Sure.
The terminology play a very important role whenever we describe a situation of an ethnic group, a human race. So if it is a Holocaust, we have to say it is Holocaust. If it is a genocide, we have to say precisely it is a genocide. If it is an ethnic cleansing, we have to say precisely it is ethnic cleansing. And what we are hearing and seeing on some articles and social media is that people are still unsure or unwilling, reluctant to use the right terminology. It plays a very huge role in our future. And specifically, sometimes even using our ethnic name as Bengali, which play a very, very huge role. We have been calling our country as Kala by using derogatory term. And we are still fighting with that. And the international community is aware of it. And those are the things that I would like to highlight about it. Also, framing the narrative of Rohingya issue as seen as a burden, we should rather see, look, as a state, we have been having this much of issue. We would like to have some support from neighboring countries. We would like to receive some sort of responsibility sharing from international communities. It should be that way. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you certainly did. Ali Johar, you think about these 2 questions. I think you are aware of it because you responded to that. If you could respond it out here on mic. And another added question to you was about the role of the Indian media. How do they cover the Rohingya plight? And there was also this question is, so these are the 2 questions. And Dr. Adil Khan, he asked about, these are important deliberations we are doing. How do we take it further? And for the benefit of all, we will come up with a policy brief, very short policy brief, with the recommendations and some of the sharp observations that were made here to make it available to the policymakers and whoever is interested. And we will, of course, share it with all the persons who have been here, and we would really urge them to disseminate, from on their own turn. Now, Ali Johar, if you could come in.
Yes. In terms of how, thanks for the questions. In terms of how medias in India, shows our, report our report, there are actually different media with different perspective. Like some medias are very extreme against Rohingyas, some medias are liberal, some medias just on a neutral position, some medias are empathetic. So it always, there are medias always walk through the eyes of some interested group, maybe political groups or any outfit. So there have been reports very negatively against our people. Even during the COVID situation, there was accusation against our people that our people are linked with Jamaat, Tablighi Jamaat, and our people are spreading COVID-19. But fortunately, thanks to God, that none of the Rohingya refugees in India till now has tested positive for COVID-19. So that is how this narrative did not work very well, but there was attempt by some of the medias to cover it very negatively, and as well as there are medias that covered in a well manner. After Amnesty International, I hope some of the participants remember, after Amnesty International came up with a report that Rohingyas have killed Hindu Rohingyas. So this particular incident or news was very much covered by some media outlet in India. So even one media from India was given access to Rakhine State to visit the spot there, and they have negatively highlighted this issue, although they have never been into highlightation of Rohingya crisis earlier or after that. So in terms of rights organizing right, the second question was on organizing legal support. So although India is not a signatory to 1951-52 Geneva Convention, it has signed a lot of other conventions like 1948 Human Rights Declaration and 1966 Bangkok Act. So this thing cover the refugee and migration as well. So although India has no legal framework for refugees, as they don't have any legal framework for refugees come under Foreigner Act 1946 and Citizenship Law 1955. So they treat refugees as foreigners. Also, under Indian Constitution, there are articles like Article 25, Article 14, Article 21, which gave anyone right to practice their religion freely, right to have a life, right to dignity, right to life. All these things secure some sort of legal rights for the refugees. As well as there are Women Convention, Children Convention that are being signed by India. So these also give some sort of legal rights to women as well as children. And Indian Constitution secure education for children up to 14 years old, that is compulsory and free. That also secure a sort of educational rights for the refugees.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ali Johar. We'll be a bit quick because we don't want to extend too much. Next question, I mean, it has not been directed to any particular person, but I would like to ask Brother Shujauddin to respond to this. You know, how overseas Rohingyas can play a practical role in protection of the members of the community. And for Nesan, the questions, you know, of Professor Shopanandan, you know, about what were the ways in which refugees from Bangladesh, you know, had gone back to Burma. And also Porimol Palma, he mentioned about, you know, what you think about future of repatriation from Bangladesh, you know, now that COVID has changed everything. And the final point at this round is from Mr. Wasimuddin, who asks about, you know, there are these reports in the problems in the camps, you know, militant activities in the camps linked to ARSA. I mean, he raised this issue. So these are some of the questions, you know, feel free to respond. If not, it's okay. So first I would like to ask Brother Shujauddin to, you know, respond to that question. Short, in brief, you don't have much of a time.
Yes.
You know, yeah, if you could. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Professor Abrar. You know, there are how the Rohingyas can support the Rohingya refugees themselves. That's the question. I think the first one. And let me tell you some facts here. In Bangladesh, there are hundreds of small CBOs. Some are known, many are known, founded by the Rohingya themselves, youth, to help out the community over there. Now, when I say the community, it's not only the refugee community. There was a group of young Rohingya men, and they gathered together saying that we don't have much to offer to this community, but what we have is blood. Therefore, we will make regular blood donation to the hospitals, or in the cases of emergency needs, we will be ready to go and donate blood for the hosting community, the host community, which is a Bangladeshi community, in our, you know, showing of the token of appreciation. And recently, about 2 months ago, another group of Rohingya has been going out in the community, asking for, offering their their services in terms of, you know, I mean, a lot of Rohingyas are farmers, so if they need any help in their farming work, so they say we'll offer our time because we don't have much to do. We can help you on this. And also in the fishing boats, for example, the fishermen were asked or offered their volunteer services to support the local community in you know, showing their appreciation. And similarly, in Malaysia, for example, at least in Kuala Lumpur, there are over 60 CBOs, community-based organizations that are operating to support the local community, including cleaning services, the volunteer cleaning services of cleaning the cemeteries. And there's a particular one called ARC, Arakan Rohingya Council, has offered regularly cleaning the cemetery in the area, the mosque, the community space, football ground, and parks. They go in the evening or on the weekend to clean this community space. And many in Malaysia might know, and the others perhaps as well. There was a flood actually in Kelantan, near the Thai border, where you know, a lot of the local Malay community were affected. These refugee communities actually raised funds and put 2 truckloads of emergency aid and went to contribute to the local community as well. And people like myself, I'm not bragging here, but just to give an example, the moment I lived in Australia for a number of years. When I got my citizenship, the first thing I did was I went back to countries like Malaysia, Bangladesh, Thailand, including Myanmar, to support my services, to whatever I've learned in the course of time here in Australia, or whatever I have earned. I go back and establish schools. Some of the centers that we have established are serving not only the refugee community, but also the other migrant communities in the vulnerable situation. I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, thank you. I think that was very, very important points that you have mentioned about what the community can do, not only being the recipients, but also, to reciprocate. And that's why the opportunities should be created so that they can be meaningful participants in the host economies. Nisal,
Yeah, thank you, brother.
We are running out of time, so
yeah, I will give.
And the last question. I mean,
I'm seeing the 3-4 question. I will give them the very short answer.
Yeah, please.
So okay, first answer to the Mr. Ahmed Ziauddin in regard to the ICC process. So yes, there is also the process at the International Court of Justice and also at the International Criminal Court. So in regard to this USS effectively launched attacks against the ICC, any comment? I have no comment because I'm the activist. I know how to comment this, but for the sake of my community, I should pretend like a politician or the diplomat at this time. I'm sorry for this. Thank you. So another question is by the Shaban Adnan. So the only way to, if Myanmar government restore our full citizenship and recognize our ethnic group named Rohingya and give us the right to return to original village and equal right as other. If they offer all these basic option, then there will be the way to repatriate the Rohingya from Bangladesh to the Rakhine state. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some 600 have returned to Myanmar, but they all returned illegally, not by through the UN agency or the Bangladesh Triple RC. So I think the same answer to this. I know this my friend from the Daily Star, Poribolo Palma. So I think this is the same answer to the, not same answer. He has asked the pandemic. So after the pandemic, we will know, if everyone can have the vaccine in Bangladesh and the Myanmar, then we can start thinking for this repatriation. But it is likely not going to happen anytime in the future, unless Myanmar offer forever, I have said earlier, restoring the citizenship, recognizing the Rohingya name, and right to return to original village, and the equal right as other. If they don't offer, majority of the Rohingya will not go back. So there is a lot of pressure and needed to fulfill our demand by the Myanmar government. And the armed conflict in Rakhine State, yes, the conflict between the Arakan army and the Myanmar military is continuing every day, and the Arakan army represent the Rakhine Buddhists. The last question, the question from the Mr. Owesim Uddin Buyan. So the militant or robber or criminal gang, we don't know who are they. We have a lot of story from the camp. There are some crime. Yes, there are more than 1 million refugees are there. Normally in Berlin there are more than 1 million people. There are a few dozen of crime every day happening. So wherever is the crowd, there will be the crime, but we don't know whether they have the link with the Asar or other international extremists. That will be known by the Bangladeshi law enforcement and the intelligence agency. We are just ordinary activists, we can access all those information. And also nowadays there is no internet, very difficult to communicate with the people from the grassroots level and to get all the update. So I think another one from the Chapan Adnan, all the Ratani, yes, they were forced to take the NVC. And yes, of course, when you fill up the form for the NVC, they needed to write, how they have arrived to Myanmar. That means like, legalizing them as the foreigner. I think I have answered all.
You did cover, and one point, if you could consider covering just in 2 minutes about the conditions of Rohingyas in third countries, not in details, we have heard about Malaysia and some other country, maybe Saudi Arabia, that did not figure, if you like, if you don't worry about it.
Yeah, second, we have the second largest refugee community in Saudi Arabia, where we have about more than 300,000. So now during this pandemic, I think at least 300 to 400 Rohingya were infected, but they have got the good help from the government for the medical treatment and the quarantine facility. But being under lockdown, they all are facing the financial hardship. That is only the problem in Saudi Arabia. But in Malaysia, as you know that, there are the xenophobic comment that began from the page of the Facebook page of the Prime Minister, where I saw the thousands of comments, but I didn't see any action taken by the Facebook admin page. Later, it spread to all over the social media, even on the Twitter. We don't know how these people are abusing us, that there is xenophobic comment, because the Malaysia have been helping us sheltering and hosting our brother and sister, more than 150,000 for I think at least 3 decades now. I know since 1990 the Rohingya refugee have been fleeing to Malaysia, and UNHCR have been issuing the recognition letter. But nowadays the situation has been changed, and the command are really we were very surprised. But with this opportunity, I would like to inform all the brother and sister, Malaysian brother and sister, that we are not going to stay in your country permanently. We will definitely go back to our homeland. We just want your solidarity until we can go back to our homeland, because that the genocide is ongoing. So all you can do is urge your government to take the action against the Myanmar government. We need the serious pressure from all the ASEAN country and all the country from the West and the South Asia. The punishment through the social boycott or the diplomatic boycott or the business boycott, that would really help, and that will help us, that will enable us to go back to our homeland. Then you don't need to host us anymore. But meanwhile, please be with us. We really want your solidarity. Thank you.
I guess that's the same message for Bangladeshi people as well as other countries in the world.
Yeah, I have already mentioned, yes.
Certainly. Now, Sujauddin, if you could respond to the question that came at the very last moment. Just say the question and you could sort of go into that. And that will be the last question before we move on to the final bit.
So the last question was, thank you for response. Excellent. Sorry, was it the last question? The language?
Mr. Reese or someone. Language.
Yeah, that one. What languages are used in the school and other places?
Places of instruction in various interactions with non-Rohingya in various countries. So,
based on wherever we are, basically we use the language, the local language at best, and also the Rohingya language. But well, I like to brag this, take opportunity. One of
go ahead. You have earned it with your presentation. So go ahead.
one of the qualities that the Rohingyas has acquired throughout the years of running, they learn to learn language very well, and average Rohingya speak at least 5 languages, and they speak quite fluently, most of them. And I think that's the thing. And also, for example, in Malaysia, like Sharifa Shakira, who grew up in Malaysia, she speaks fluent and excellent Malay, and other places learn their local languages. But of course, we try to maintain the Rohingya language as well. I think that's the question.
Thank you. We are almost at the end of the session. And before I move on to some of the points, as final statement from my end, I would urge the panelists to think, about points, for the last minute, 1 minute each, after I'm done. So I will take about only a few minutes. And what I'm saying is, what we see is, what could be the possible takeaways from this discussion. And one of the major points that comes across is international community should take effective actions so that Myanmar abides by the ICG directive to stop its genocidal acts, that is leading to more Rohingyas flee the land, and create enabling conditions for repatriation to take place. We also think that appropriate reparations, I think this is very important, we should demand this, that Myanmar pays appropriate reparations to the countries that are adversely affected by its actions contributing to the refugee flow. We also urge littoral states of Andaman Sea and South China Sea to immediately allow the drifting of boats to dock on their land, to save hundreds of Rohingyas. We also feel that the host countries should make every effort to the growing cases of and loathing of Rohingyas as COVID-19 carriers, drug mules, agents of human traffickers, or a threat to national security. We further feel that the burgeoning discourse shaped by the manipulative Myanmar state in connivance with pliant global media and some powerful states that have important stakes in Myanmar of presenting Rohingyas as a security threat should be countered by facts and not perception by all concerned, governments, the media, and the global civil society. We believe if the Rohingyas are expected to rebuild their communities, they ought to be given the opportunity to develop their human potentials and thus opportunity to access to appropriate education and skills development. We believe, we know, we understand, we have learned then in some countries, severe curtailment of physical movement, even within the refugee camps, mistreatment, threats of reduction of food, and deliberate and sustained policies of internet ban are being pursued. We urge those countries to immediately cease from resorting to such measures and respect the right and dignity of the Rohingya asylum seekers and refugees. There is also, and this point has been absolutely, it was made very clear, that instead of treating the Rohingyas as beneficiaries of charity and relief, there is an urgent need by all quarters, host states, donor agencies, international actors, and NGOs to recognize the community's agency and create opportunities for self-empowerment and entrepreneurship. This will, on the one hand, reduce the pressure of the host countries on the host countries and international actors, as well as prepare the community members for their eventual reintegration in Arakan after their return to Myanmar. We also believe that forced large-scale inflow of refugees, we acknowledge that, fleeing persecution often creates pressure and has created pressure on the host communities, affecting their regular life and livelihood. In that respect, all concerned state, international agencies, and non-governmental actors should ensure that the concerns of the host communities are taken on board in framing of services provisions such as health, education, sanitation, and the like. And finally, mechanisms and opportunities should be created so that Rohingyas are included in the discussion in framing of policies and their implementation that affect their lives and the future of their communities. So these are some of the points, I guess, we deliberated and we could articulate, and presenting before you. And we certainly hope that, we can add more, but these are some of the major ones. So having said that, now it's my privilege to come back to all of you for 1 minute each. First, I'll come to Sharifa, the first speaker, and we go in that order. Sharifa.
I think I just want to say to the world out there that we are the same human of the earth, like you. We just looking for very basic things, peace, freedom, to live as a dignified human, like us, like other people in the world. Don't hate us, help us return home. We don't want to be burden of anybody. We don't want to be hate. We just asking the world to help us return home and, give us the right to live as a human. Allow us to get opportunity to, to study, allow us to work, earn, allow us to, to speak, allow us to live as a human. That's it we're asking. And, help us to return home. So that's a message I want to give. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharifa. Now, Hafsar. Hafsar?
Yes, thank you. Because COVID-19 is around, I just want to relate it with that again. So when this pandemic strikes each and every one of us, the entire world has shaken. We know what is it like to be threatened by something to the lives of you, yourself, and to your loved ones. This is, we don't have cure for it. We're still working on it. But for Rohingya crisis, we know the solution. This is man-made disaster. We know the root cause. So my request to the international community, civil society, to the states, please stand with us in solidarity to find the long-term solution, the sustainable solution for the root cause, and also for the short-term solution that we all have discussed about. And then my second point is, see us as the resource, not as the burden. Include us in the work that you do for us. We are more than happy to contribute for our cause. We have human resources in Bangladesh camp, in different countries, wherever we are, we have expertise that we carry along with our lived experience. Please let us be in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hafsa. Now, Johar.
Thanks for this opportunity. Actually, I'd like to conclude with a short poem that one of my students wrote. That he says, he wrote it during the xenophobia started in the Malaysia just recent time. He writes, "My existence, my dignity does not exist for you. You use my identity as a slur. You don't see me as human as you. You are not happy if I work with you. You don't expect me in a school with you. You don't allow me into religious places with you. Overall, you don't want me to socialize as you. But hypocrites, you expect me to behave, socialize with you." This is the conclusion remark. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sujauddin Karimuddin.
Thank you very much. First of all, the organizers, RU and the FRC, for organizing this, to give us opportunity to express our concerns. And to all of you, we are very resilient people. It is I feel I love my life for what I have gone through, and we can share a lot in the society. And then every Rohingya, every refugee for that matter, can contribute to the wherever they are, and yes, allow them to contribute back to your society, wherever you are hosting.
Thank you. And finally, Nissan.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Abra, for organizing this event, collaboration with the Free Rohingya Coalition. So thank you for everything. So now we are in the new normal because, when the COVID-19 started, the people were really afraid and scared, but now the people are very used to with this pandemic. So we can move forward with this new normal. So Myanmar, and also Myanmar is not badly impacted by this COVID-19. They have only about the 300 case, mostly recover. So I think instead of we talk about the action, it is time to take the real action, not to ask the UN Security Council to refer the Myanmar to International Criminal Court, which is unrealistic. It is not going to happen anytime, because there are the Russia and the China, always they will refuse. So this unrealistic, unrealistic. So let's go for the real action, practical action. There I see only as the boycott as an option that will really stop ongoing genocide of Rohingya in Myanmar. So my message to the international community or the government: if you really care us, if you really stand with us, your solidarity should be the practical action. So start dealing with the Myanmar socially, diplomatically, economically, whatever you can. If you really want to stop this genocide, if you want to see we live as a human being in our homeland, you should start taking in the action instead of talking about the UN Security Council or whatever. That is not going to happen. As we have been experiencing, even during like 10,000 of people were killed in 2017. The UN security didn't take any action. So what I am demanding is, let's go for the boycott. This is how the South African people have gained back their human dignity from the apartheid. So another one thing is, please consider us as equal partnership. Give us the space. Like today, the Rohingya only panel, we can speak for ourselves. Yes, of course, we will have the language problem, being we are not the native. That is the not real issue. Give us the space. And even in the media, we are the people who need to speak, who need to voice of raise the voice for our own people. So your solidarity is very much important, but as an equal partner, not as like a surveyor. Thank you.
Thank you, Nissan. My final 2 points, referring to the point that you just made. During anti-apartheid movement, it also started off very small, and eventually it led to the downfall of the apartheid regime. But one of the catalytic factors in that was the civil society all across the world. They joined hand. I remember when I was studying abroad at the time, there was this Barclays Bank. There was this movement against Barclays Bank, so because they had investment in South Africa. So that kind of, we need to engage the broader, states had their turn. They could not do enough unless it comes from the people, unless it comes from the consumers. The investors that they're making investments in Arakan, in Myanmar, I think they need to feel the pinch. And for that, we have to really make ourselves visible. That's one of the points I would refer to. My second point is, some years ago, Jeff Crisp, one of the very top-notch UNHCR's person, and very respectable person, he said at a meeting on Rohingya, when he asked his colleagues that why shouldn't we be engaging the community, in charting this plan, and the response from a very high up in the system said, oh, they are primitive people. We have to think, they cannot think. We have to do the thinking for them. Almost that kind of statement was made. And when we talk about engaging the community in the decision-making processes, that are being undertaken at different forums, not necessarily in this country, in other forums as well. The normal thing that we hear is, oh, they don't have proper leadership. I think, if anything, today's e-Symposium has done is to dispel that myth. We have seen, you have narrated the lived experiences of yourselves, and you have demonstrated the capacity that you are the leaders, not that you are leaders of tomorrow, you are leaders of today. And it is our responsibility to recognize your leadership and to work with you together so that we can make the world better for the Rohingyas, of course, and in the process, we make the world better for us as well in different parts of the world. So let us work in harmony to build back better. Thank you, everyone, for your kind participation. Thank you. I bring an end.
Yeah. Thank you so much.